All right, welcome back to the deep dive. We all want to make the most of our time, right? Learn new stuff, get better at what we do, and you're here because you're all about that efficient, effective learning.
Absolutely.
So today, we're diving into something that I bet everyone listening has wondered about at some point.
Okay, yeah.
You're in a study group, you're on a project team, and the question pops up, is working together really the best way to learn?
It's such a common assumption, right? Like teamwork automatically makes things better. But the research, particularly in fields like cognitive psychology, social psychology, and education, well, it paints a much more nuanced picture,
Way more interesting than a simple yes or no.
for sure.
So today, we're not focusing on just one single study. We've actually gone through a whole bunch of research. We've
Mm.
synthesized it to give you a clear understanding of when and how learning with others actually helps you learn better.
And just as importantly, when it might not be the best approach.
Yeah.
It's really about getting to the core of how we learn as individuals and as groups.
And this isn't a new debate either.
Right.
I mean, the
Yeah.
idea that there's something powerful about learning together, that goes way, way back.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You see it in teaching methods across so many different subjects, from, lively literature discussions to solving those complex engineering problems.
You see it everywhere. Think about those dreaded group projects back in school.
Right, yeah.
And then even at the university level, there's this huge emphasis on team-based learning.
Oh, yeah.
And even in workplace training, it's all about collaborating.
Absolutely. And it takes so many forms, too. You have the classic group problem solving, those jigsaw activities where everyone has a piece of the puzzle, structured cooperative learning.
Right. Think, pair, share.
Exactly.
There's so many ways to try and get people working together.
Yeah. I mean, you can even trace this idea back to ancient Rome.
Whoa, really? That far back?
Yeah. Quintilian, a Roman rhetorician, he actually talked about how beneficial it could be to learn rhetoric in a social setting.
So the intuition that there's something powerful about learning with others, it's been around for centuries.
Absolutely.
But intuition is only part of the story. We want to give you the real evidence-based understanding. We want to go beyond that gut feeling
Right.
and really understand the nuts and bolts, like when does collaboration actually work to boost your learning? And just as importantly, when might it actually hold you back?
Exactly.
So first things first, we need to define what we mean by collaboration today.
Right, definitely. So, for the purposes of this deep dive, when we say collaboration, we're talking about actively engaging and interacting with a small group of people.
Okay.
Usually, let's say 2 to 5 other individuals, and everyone's focused on learning something together.
Working towards a shared goal, and this is super important for you listening to understand, we're zeroing in on research that actually measures whether learning took place.
Yeah, that's key.
So there's a learning phase where the group works together on something, and then there's some kind of test or assessment afterwards to see what actually stuck.
Precisely.
So we're not talking about studies that just look at how well a group performs on a single task right then and there.
Yeah, like a quick brainstorming session.
Right.
Those can be helpful, but we're really interested in how collaboration impacts that deeper, more lasting learning.
Right.
Like, how well can you remember information later on? How deeply do you understand how to solve a problem? Can you critically analyze new information?
You've looked at research across a ton of different areas, right?
Yeah, we have. Everything from math and science to the actual psychology of learning itself.
Fascinating stuff. So we've got a clear picture of what we mean by collaboration.
Okay.
Now, how do researchers actually figure out if it's helping or hindering your learning?
Well, there are a couple of different ways they approach this. The first way is pretty straightforward.
Right.
They compare how a group performs on a learning task to the average performance of individuals who did the same thing, but alone.
Okay, so you're essentially looking at the group as a unit.
Yeah, exactly.
Did the group as a whole learn more than a typical individual working on their own?
Precisely.
That makes sense for getting a general idea,
Right.
but I know there's a second way to analyze this that gets a lot more granular.
Yeah,
Looking at what's happening to you as an individual within that group.
exactly. It goes deeper. It compares your individual learning within the group to what you might have achieved if you'd studied alone.
Yeah.
And this often involves something called a nominal group.
Okay, break down nominal group for me. What exactly is that?
Well, think of it as a sort of statistical comparison group. Researchers take the results from several individuals who worked independently,
Okay.
and then they combine their unique contributions as if they had been a collaborative group.
Oh, interesting.
So let's say the task is to remember a list of words.
Right.
They'd take all the words each person remembered on their own, put them together, and that's the nominal group's recall. Then they compare that to how many words a real collaborative group actually remembered.
So it's like, are you actually getting a synergistic effect from the collaboration?
Yeah, you got it.
Is the sum of the parts truly greater or sometimes less than?
Exactly. And this kind of analysis has led to some really interesting concepts, like if someone actually learns less in a group than they likely would have alone, that's called collaborative inhibition.
Makes sense. Inhibition, something's holding you back.
Right. And on the flip side, if the group helps someone learn more than they could have individually, that's collaborative facilitation.
Okay, so there's the potential for both positive and negative impacts.
Absolutely. A lot of the more detailed laboratory research uses these individual level comparisons.
And I imagine there are pros and cons to studying this in a controlled lab versus a real classroom, right?
Yeah, definitely. Lab studies offer a lot of control. Researchers can really isolate specific factors, measure learning precisely.
Right, but it's not always the most natural setting.
Exactly. The tasks might feel a bit artificial compared to what you'd encounter in the real world. Classroom studies, though, they reflect real-life learning situations much better.
Right, more ecological validity.
Absolutely. But there are so many other things happening in a classroom that it can be harder to isolate the impact of collaboration itself.
Yeah, it's a trade-off.
Yeah,
But ideally, you'd like to see findings that are consistent across both settings.
exactly. That's the goal.
All right, so the idea that collaborative learning is always better is probably too simplistic.
Definitely.
Let's dig into why it can sometimes go wrong. What are some of the mechanisms that can lead to a group learning experience falling flat?
Well, a lot of it boils down to the mental effort, the cognitive demands of actually working with others.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it takes energy to collaborate, right?
It does, and sometimes those demands can outweigh any potential learning benefits.
All right, let's break down these cognitive costs. What does that look like for someone who's trying to learn in a group?
Well, think about it. You're paying attention to what everyone else is saying, trying to make sense of their ideas in relation to your own, navigating different approaches to the task.
Right, there's a lot going on.
There is. And this can lead to what are called memory coordination costs.
Okay.
Essentially, the mental effort you spend on coordinating with others can take away from the mental energy you could be using to actually learn the material.
It's like, trying to focus on a lecture in a noisy room.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of your attention is going towards filtering out the distractions rather than actually absorbing the information.
That's a great analogy. And there are models that help explain when this process loss is more likely. Like the zone of proximal facilitation model suggests that the most effective collaboration happens when there's a sweet spot.
A sweet spot, okay.
Yeah, between how challenging the task is, how competent each individual is, and the overall competence of the group. If you can easily do the task on your own, there's not much to gain from collaborating.
You're probably better off just doing it yourself.
Yeah, and those coordination costs might even make you perform worse. On the other hand, if the task is way too difficult for the group as a whole, well, collaboration's not going to magically make it easier.
Right, so it's about finding that middle ground
Yeah.
where the task is difficult enough that you could benefit from different perspectives,
Right.
but not so overwhelming that the group gets bogged down in just trying to coordinate.
You got it. Another related idea comes from the cognitive load model, which basically says that for simple tasks where your mental workload is already low, adding the extra layer of group coordination just adds unnecessary burden.
Too much overhead.
Exactly. No real learning payoff. However, for more complex tasks that have a high cognitive load,
Okay.
dividing that load among group members can actually be beneficial.
So if I'm trying to wrap my head around something really complex, working with others could actually help distribute that mental load.
That's the idea, make it more manageable. But there are other cognitive hurdles that can hinder learning in a group.
Okay, like what?
One has to do with how we organize information in our memory. Everyone has their own unique way of encoding things.
Right, our own mental filing system.
Exactly. And when you try to recall that information in a group, those different organizational systems can actually interfere with each other.
It's like everyone's got their own personal filing system,
Yeah.
and then you try to access information as a group, and all the systems clash.
Yeah, a great analogy. This is what the collaborative memory model explores.
Interesting.
And this can show up in a couple of ways. One is retrieval strategy disruption.
Retrieval strategy disruption, okay.
You might have a really effective way of remembering something, maybe by mentally walking through a familiar place or associating it with a song. But in a group, paying attention to others and their retrieval methods
Right.
can actually disrupt your own thought process and make it harder to recall the information.
Oh, I've totally experienced that in study groups.
Yeah.
You have your way of remembering something, and then someone else suggests something totally different, and it completely throws you off.
Exactly. And then there's production blocking, which is a bit more straightforward.
Okay?
In a group, typically only one person can speak at a time.
Right?
So if you have an idea or you're trying to recall something, you might have to wait your turn.
Yeah.
And by the time you get a chance to speak, the thought might be gone, or the opportunity to connect it to what others are saying has passed.
So those are some of the cognitive challenges that can make collaborative learning less effective. What about the social dynamics?
Oh, yeah.
We all know those can have a huge impact, like, some people not contributing equally.
Absolutely. Social factors play a big role in whether collaboration truly helps you learn. One well-known phenomenon is social loafing.
Right. The classic someone else will handle it syndrome.
Exactly. Individuals in a group tend to put in less effort because they believe others will pick up the slack.
Yeah. Diffusion of responsibility.
Right. If there are several people in the group, you might subconsciously think you don't need to contribute as much.
Makes sense.
Hmm.
What else?
Another social factor that can hinder learning is fear of evaluation.
Okay.
You might be hesitant to share your ideas, especially if you're not completely sure about them, or to critique others' ideas because you're worried about being judged.
It's like that feeling of, what if I'm wrong? What if I sound stupid?
Exactly. And this can really stifle the kind of open discussion and critical thinking that's supposed to be a benefit of collaboration.
It's so true. If you're afraid to look foolish, you might not participate fully.
Right.
And then you miss out on the learning opportunity.
You do. And these social mechanisms are something that proponents of cooperative learning, folks like Johnson and Johnson, have long recognized. They emphasize that simply putting people together isn't enough.
Right. It's not a magic bullet.
No.
Yeah.
To avoid social loafing, you need individual accountability within the group. Everyone needs a clear role. Their contributions need to be visible.
Right. Everyone needs to pull their weight.
Exactly. And their social interdependence theory focuses on how individuals can support each other's learning goals within the group.
Okay. So we've looked at why collaboration can sometimes stumble. Now let's flip the script.
Right.
When does collaboration really shine? What are the mechanisms of group success?
Well, on the cognitive side, one key mechanism is cross-cueing.
Cross-cueing.
This is where something one group member says or recalls can act as a trigger, a cue that helps another member remember something related or understand a concept better.
So it's like having multiple pathways to access information.
Yeah, exactly.
If one person's mental route is blocked, someone else might provide a different cue that unlocks it for everyone.
You got it. But this often relies on group members having some shared background knowledge to begin with.
Makes sense. You need some common ground for those cues to be effective.
Absolutely. Another cognitive benefit comes from complementary knowledge.
Okay.
This is when different members bring unique knowledge or expertise to the table. Oh, right. Like everyone has their own little piece of the puzzle.
Exactly. One person might have a deep understanding of one aspect, while another understands a different part really well. By sharing and explaining, the group as a whole develops a much more complete understanding.
That's the idea behind the jigsaw classroom, right?
Yeah.
Where each student becomes the expert on one piece of information and teaches it to the others. That's a great way to leverage different strengths within a group.
Absolutely. And building on that, collaboration can also lead to increasing working memory resources.
Okay.
Even though coordinating does have its costs, the combined mental capacity of the group can be greater than your individual capacity.
Right. More brain power to work with.
Exactly. Allowing the group to hold and process more information at once, which can be really helpful for those complex problems.
So it's like having a bigger mental workspace.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's error correction.
Right. That's got to be huge. Oh, yeah. When people work together, they can question each other's reasoning, point out mistakes in understanding, and help refine the group's overall grasp of the material.
Built-in checks and balances.
You got it. This back and forth can lead to a much more accurate and robust understanding for everyone.
That's a really valuable benefit.
It is. The collaborative memory model also highlights re-exposure and relearning through retrieval as benefits.
Okay.
When one person recalls information, it gives everyone else another chance to be exposed to that material,
Right.
which can strengthen their own memory. And the act of trying to recall information, even if you don't get it right away, is incredibly powerful for learning and remembering things long term.
The testing effect in action.
Exactly. That's the relearning through retrieval mechanism. Much more effective than just passively rereading notes.
So even if I don't actively contribute the first time something's brought up, just hearing it can help me learn it better.
Absolutely. And all these cognitive mechanisms tie in nicely with Chi's ICP framework, which emphasizes that interactive behaviors are key for deep learning.
Okay.
Things like constructive utterances.
Constructive utterances. Okay.
When you generate your own ideas, explanations that go beyond what's explicitly given,
Right.
and having that back and forth conversation, successful collaborations foster these kinds of interactive behaviors, which leads to better learning.
So it's not just about sitting there passively.
Yeah.
You got to actively engage.
You got it.
All right, we've covered the cognitive advantages. What about the social side of successful collaboration?
Well, observational learning is a big one.
Okay.
You can learn a lot just by watching and listening to others as they work through a problem or try to recall information.
It's like having a front row seat to other people's thought processes.
Exactly. You might pick up new strategies, see different approaches, witness how they correct their mistakes.
Learning by example.
Absolutely. And then there's the potential for increased engagement. Well-functioning cooperative groups can create a supportive environment
Right.
where you feel more motivated to participate, ask questions, and help each other learn. That mutual encouragement can be really powerful.
It's easier to stay focused and motivated when you feel like you're part of a team
Absolutely.
and you've got that social support.
You do. Successful collaboration often involves the joint management of attention and construction of common ground.
Okay, that sounds important.
It is. The group works together to focus on what's important, to build a shared understanding of the task and the concepts.
So you're all on the same page.
Exactly. This process of establishing that common understanding is crucial for effective communication and learning together.
It's not just about throwing people in a room and hoping for the best.
Right.
You have to actively work to understand each other and build that shared foundation of knowledge.
Absolutely. And finally, negotiating multiple perspectives can be incredibly valuable.
That's interesting. So a little bit of healthy debate can actually be a good thing.
Yeah, it can be. When you work with others who have different viewpoints, you're forced to consider those perspectives, articulate your own understanding, and potentially refine your thinking as a result.
So the initial friction of those different ideas can actually spark deeper learning.
Exactly. It pushes you beyond your initial understanding and encourages more critical thinking.
I love that. Okay, with all these potential benefits and drawbacks, what does the research evidence tell us? Let's start with what happens in the controlled environment of the lab.
Right.
What have researchers found?
Well, lab research generally shows that groups tend to outperform the average individual on a variety of tasks,
Okay.
particularly memory tasks, like remembering lists of words, stories, even details from pictures and videos.
So for memorization, groups seem to have an edge.
They do. But it's not just memory. They also tend to do better with things like learning new categories and even learning how to play video games.
Interesting. What are some of the reasons for this?
Well, it seems like pooled knowledge, the ability to pay attention to different aspects, seeing things from multiple perspectives, and learning by watching others all contribute.
It makes sense.
It does, but it's important to remember that many of these lab studies use materials that people haven't encountered before.
Okay.
And the participants are mostly adults. So how these findings translate to other situations, like kids in a classroom, is something to keep in mind.
All right, fair enough. So we see groups doing better than individuals in the lab.
Mm.
What about when collaboration doesn't lead to better learning?
Well, there's also a good amount of evidence for collaborative inhibition in the lab,
Okay, that makes sense.
especially when it comes to memory recall and problem solving. The main culprits here seem to be the extra mental effort of coordinating and those disruptions to your thought processes when you're trying to retrieve information.
It's like you said earlier, all those cognitive costs can really add up.
They can. And interestingly, this inhibition effect is most commonly found with memory tasks.
But it sounds like collaborative inhibition isn't a guaranteed outcome, even with memory. Are there ways to lessen its impact?
Yeah, absolutely. Researchers have identified several factors that can reduce the inhibition. For instance, if you study and test yourselves repeatedly as a group, the effect tends to go away.
Okay, so repeated practice helps.
It does. How the information is organized also matters. The inhibition is less likely when you're recalling things from small, well-defined categories.
So organization is key.
It is. Even the type of memory test makes a difference. Cued recall and recognition tasks don't usually show inhibition, unlike free recall.
That's fascinating. So the way you're asked to remember things can change how well collaboration works.
Exactly. And if you study the material together in the first place, that shared understanding during encoding can also help.
So encoding together, recalling together.
Yeah. And finally, if you and your group members have more shared expertise in the area, that also seems to reduce inhibition.
So it's not a simple rule that groups are bad for memory.
No, not at all.
It really depends on how the collaboration is structured and who's doing the learning.
Hmm.
Now, what about those instances of collaborative facilitation
Right.
where people actually exceed what they were predicted to do on their own?
Those are a bit less common in the lab, but they do happen, again, in memory recall and problem solving.
Okay.
The mechanisms we talked about earlier, like cross-cueing, explaining things to each other, and correcting errors, those seem to be really important here.
Right, those benefits we discussed.
Exactly. And having expertise seems to be a key factor. For instance, there was this study that looked at aviation experts.
Okay.
They found that people with less flying experience showed collaborative inhibition on tasks related to flight scenarios, but the experts actually showed collaborative facilitation.
So the more you know, the better you collaborate.
It seems that way. The idea is that the experts were better at building that shared understanding, cross-cueing effectively, and elaborating on each other's ideas.
So that background knowledge really makes a difference.
Yeah.
Now let's shift gears and look at what the research says about collaboration in real classrooms.
Right.
What's the picture there?
The evidence from classrooms is a bit more mixed when you compare groups to individual students. Some studies show positive results, with groups doing better on tasks like building models, coming up with hypotheses, and solving complex biology problems.
That's encouraging.
Yeah.
So the idea that working together is beneficial does hold up in a lot of real-world learning environments.
It does. And there's even a large meta-analysis of classroom studies on cooperative learning that showed an overall positive impact on achievement.
Okay, so there's good support for it.
There is, but it's not a guaranteed win. Other studies have found no significant difference between groups and individuals, and in some cases, groups actually performed worse.
Really? Worse?
Yeah. For instance, some research with younger students working on physical balance tasks
Okay.
and with university students in an information management course.
Oh.
They found that collaboration didn't help, and in one case, it actually hurt performance. So there's definitely more complexity and variability in classroom settings compared to controlled lab environments.
It's messier in the real world.
It is.
Now, what about those individual level comparisons in classrooms?
Okay.
Is there much research looking at collaborative inhibition or facilitation in actual educational settings?
There's less research that drills down to that level in classrooms, but there are some interesting findings.
Okay, like what?
In one study, students worked in pairs to correct writing errors.
Right.
The researchers found that for superficial errors like typos, there was collaborative inhibition.
So they actually missed more typos when they worked together.
Yeah, they didn't catch as many as they would have if they'd reviewed the paper individually.
Wow.
But for more significant structural errors, they didn't see that inhibition.
So for the big picture stuff, collaboration was helpful.
Yeah, it seems so. The researchers think that the shared knowledge about writing and the error correction process itself might have helped overcome the downsides of collaboration for those more complex issues.
So the type of task, the kind of errors you're focused on, those things can influence whether collaboration is helpful or a hindrance.
Exactly. And that's a really important takeaway.
It's not one size fits all. All right, let's bring it all together.
Okay.
What are the key insights from all this research for someone who's listening and wants to learn more effectively?
Well, to summarize, there's good evidence that groups can achieve better learning outcomes than the average individual, and the reasons include shared knowledge, the opportunity to explain things, cross-cueing, error correction, reducing mental overload, and learning by watching others.
Right, all those benefits we discussed.
But it's also clear that you might sometimes learn less in a group due to coordination challenges and disruptions to your thinking.
Right, the potential downsides are real.
They are. But perhaps most exciting is the evidence that collaboration can sometimes lead to you learning more than you could have on your own.
Unlocking that hidden potential.
Exactly. And that seems to be linked to building a shared understanding, considering different viewpoints, and sharing relevant information effectively.
So the big takeaway for you, our listener who wants to learn efficiently, is that collaboration isn't a guaranteed shortcut to knowledge.
No, it's not.
Its effectiveness really depends on a whole bunch of interconnected factors.
Yeah.
The cognitive and social dynamics within the group, the specific nature of what you're trying to learn, and even the characteristics of the people you're learning with.
It's about understanding those underlying mechanisms and using that knowledge to make smarter choices about when and how to collaborate.
Right, being intentional about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because just hoping that putting people together will magically lead to better results, well, that's not a very effective strategy.
Not at all. This really makes you think about how we approach learning, doesn't it?
It does.
Considering all the different ways collaboration can impact individual learning, both the positives and the negatives, what kinds of learning goals are truly best suited for group work?
That's a great question.
And how can we design collaborative activities to really maximize those aha moments while minimizing those potential downsides of working together?
Yeah, that's something for everyone to consider as they continue their learning journey.
Absolutely. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you next time.